I'd like to welcome everybody to our regular and we start with Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Roll call. Oh. Present.
Here, Governing Anthony, Governing Raul Rodriguez, Governing Board Member Dr.
Present.
District Dr. Manuel Valencia,
Present.
Attendant Scott Down, absent. Absent. Financial Officer.
Thank you very much. We'll continue with approval of the Dr.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, President and all members of the board. At this time, I do recommend approval of the agenda as it was revised.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Carries. Thank you very much. Approval of the minutes, Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, President and all members of the board. In your packets, you have draft copies of the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting of the board last week, back on February 28th, 2024. And after your review and consideration, I do recommend approval at this time.
Thank you very much. I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll continue to ratification of vouchers. Ms. Huey.
Good evening. Tonight, before you in your board packet, you have all of our payroll ratifications, new payroll expense vouchers as well. And just to highlight, we do have enough of our new payroll and also expense vouchers to carry hopefully until the end of the fiscal year. That's why you're seeing the majority of them tonight. And of course, we always come back and ratify them once confirmed what those payments are going to be. So I just wanted you to know that the majority of them are in your packet, or all of them are in your packet, just to carry us up to the end of the fiscal year. So with that, I ask for approval of the payroll voucher number 18, payroll 23 through 25.4 for total payroll of $31,850,120.30. Additionally, I recommend expense vouchers 3069 and 3070, new expense vouchers 3075 through 3100 for total expense approval of $52,278,559.35 for a grand total of $84,128,009.65.
Thank you very much. I've got a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Monsieur. We'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Valenzuela.
Given that my last report was literally a week ago, not too many things to add, but that doesn't mean that there are not things of tremendous substance and gratitude and appreciation. Up on the screen, hot off the press, so to speak, each of our schools today publicly announced their identified teachers of the year. And remember, these folks will be part of the, from this pool will come our representatives for the Arizona Teacher of the Year. You might recall that this year we had two of our teachers, one who made the top 10 Arizona Teacher of the Year list as a semifinalist, and one who was an ambassador for excellence, I believe is accurate. Yes. So this group here, Tiffany Flores from Anza Trail, Raf Shirello from Anza, Penny Hoffman from Copperview, Veronica McCarthy from SDPA, Danielle Rutherford from Sahuarita High School, Alyssa Wall from SIS, Tanya Gilvin from SMS, Stephanie Sines from SPS, Dan Barry from Sopri, Rita Hardy from Walden Grove, Carly Carrillo from Wrightson Ridge, and Rusty Carl Ogren from Wrightson Ridge will be representing us with great excellence, and they truly do exemplify the high ideals of the teaching profession and the Sahuarita School District. I'd like to remind the board that tomorrow at 11 o'clock, we get to go sit in the little chairs. That's right. It's the board lunch at the Early Childhood Center. And the hard part is not sitting down, it's getting back up. And finally, I would be remiss if I didn't just publicly take the opportunity to thank the amazing men and women of the Sahuarita Police Department, the town of Sahuarita. I notice Councilmember Egbert is here in her parental role this evening, but thank you, Councilmember Egbert, Mayor Murphy, Chief Nolan, Mr. Dilly, and the whole crew over there, along with our own teachers, administrators, staff, just for a total team effort. You know, sometimes the ultimate test of our character is when things are rough. We're going to recognize young people for their amazing character. And we're actually called to be at our best sometimes when things are at their worst. And last week was a week that exemplified that. And as a team, we weren't perfect, but we rose to the occasion and we kept focused on keeping our kids, keeping our people, keeping our community safe. And it was a total team effort. And for that, I am tremendously grateful and blessed. Other than that, I just wanted to wish everybody a nice spring break. You know, this is the 1 week where the proverbial curtain in Sahuarita School District is actually dark. Like, of course, there's sports and winter guard and band and stuff like that, but the buildings themselves are actually closed during the week. So hopefully everybody takes a chance to have a well-deserved rejuvenation break to recharge the batteries, because we know once we come back, it's a blur to the finish line. So we're looking forward to a wonderful finish, but hopefully a little break in between. And with that, I close my report. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the governing board reports. Dr. Sparks.
Thank you very much. I just want to add two also. Hope everybody has a little time to take a little break and wind down, spend time with family, and get a little pause for spring break. But I too also want to thank all of the staff, the community. I think this last week shows that we live in a community that cares about the education of the young people who live here. And while stressful and distressing in many ways, I think not only the staff, but also parents and children rose to the occasion, and things were remarkably smooth during those periods of time. So I'm just grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rodriguez.
Yeah, I would just like to thank all the law enforcement officers that responded to the 2 incidents last week. I appreciate your rapid response during the safe return of our students to their families. I would also like to announce that this Sunday there will be a prayer walk. We will be meeting at the south end of the lake, at the amphitheater near the clubhouse. We'll be meeting there about 5:30 p.m. Everyone is invited. If you need more details, a Facebook page has been created. Feel free to look there for the details. And hope to see you there.
Thank you very much. Ms. Reese.
So last week was definitely a roller coaster, but I do want to put a huge shout out to middle school boys soccer teams. Of the 4 finalists in the finals for that, 3 of them were our Sahuarita schools. So congratulations to Asmas for taking first place, Onza Trail for second, and Wrightson Ridge for third, because that was a huge accomplishment. So that was great for them. So those games were happening on Thursday, and it was definitely a roller coaster that day. But a huge shout out to our middle school boys soccer teams. They did great this year.
Thank you very much. I'd be remiss in saying 4 years ago, the last time I was in this president's chair was when we shut down for COVID. Right before spring break. So I'm very grateful. It puts things into perspective. You always said keep hope alive. That 4 years later, here we are. And so I'm grateful for all the lessons learned, and wishing everybody a healthy and safe spring break this time. And we'll see you after the break. It was good. We're going to go ahead and move on to recognition of community staff and students. And we'll start with staff. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I believe we have 2 months worth of honorees this evening. Is that right, Scott, or are we just doing one today? Just one. And, I think, as was mentioned regarding the events of the past week, I often say that excellence and success are team endeavors. I talked about how we came together as a team in really a very difficult, stressful situation. And I would say more broadly in general, the success of our organization is rooted in the spirit of community that kind of binds us together. And if you look at our internal organization, you know, we have administrators, we have faculty members in different content areas, different levels. We have people that provide administrative support, instructional support. We have people that provide food service. We have people that drive buses. We have people that fix and make sure our plants are in good running shape. And everybody has their own square in this big, beautiful quilt that we do together to help every student to succeed. So it is truly an honor this evening and every month to recognize a designated special member of our support staff team. These folks are a vital link to our mission advancement, and I know that this evening's honoree will be no exception to the example of excellence. Mr. Downs, please.
Thank you very much. Without any further ado, again, picking one person out of 400 is just very, very hard to do. But very excited. It's my pleasure to read this nomination from Mr. Ramon Andrade, Director of Facilities and the SUSD Facilities Administration Team. They have nominated Mr. Jorge Morales as the Sahuarita Unified School District Support Staff Member of the Month. Jorge Morales was selected as Support Staff Member of the Month due to his outstanding performance and dedication in his role as the HVAC Controller. With meticulous attention to detail and a strong commitment to excellence, Jorge has consistently ensured that the efficient operation of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems within our organization. His proactive approach to maintenance and troubleshoot has not only minimized downtime, but also contributed to creating a comfortable and healthy indoor environments for our staff, students, and visitors alike. His willingness to go the extra mile to deliver high-quality service has undoubtedly made a significant impact on the overall functioning of all of our schools. So again, Jorge Morales, Support Staff Member of the Month.
Felicidades.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to students. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, President Lowell, members of the board. And I'd like to welcome family and friends, grandparents of our honorees, our students this evening. We know that you are the most instrumental part and a tremendous element of helping to shape these young people and the reason that we're here to recognize them. You know, I often say that our students are the greatest ambassadors to the work that we do. And whether you're looking at accomplishments in soccer, in the fine arts, in music, band, in interscholastic athletics, college acceptance, and in character, our students really make Sahuarita shine. We believe, I know as long as I've been here, and I'm sure even before then, that part of the educational process, I would argue perhaps the most important part of the educational process is to promote the development of strong character, just strong virtues and those attributes that will guide and shape these young people, not only to reach their full academic, professional potential, but to be the best that they can be as they go forward, the future leaders of our country and the ones who will carry the baton in the next leg of the race. So every time when we recognize these young people, it just warms my heart and it makes me feel good because they are truly amazing. We honor them in a special way. Dr. Sparks will present each honoree with a special certificate, a letter from me, a gift card from Barnes & Noble, and our most sincere congratulations. When you come down, you'll get your materials. Dr. Sparks, I'm sure, will shake your hand. Walk through, we'll want to shake your hands here. Mr. Bonner will position you up on the steps, and we'll take a nice picture because Kim here from the Green Valley News is going to make sure that the local newspaper puts this in the paper so that everybody can know how amazing you are. So again, congratulations. With the quick turnaround, we do have a couple that weren't able to make it, and we'll make sure we get them back next time. And speaking of which, I'll begin with the leader in character from Scopri Elementary School, who I don't believe is here this evening, but I want to recognize Maria Yepes, fourth grader, and move on to the two leaders in character from Anza Trail School. We have two, one elementary, one middle school. And our first leader in character from Anza Trail is fifth grader Brooklyn Naff. Brooklyn. And our second leader in character from Anza Trail School is an eighth grader. Congratulations, Madison Hoagie. All righty, and now we will turn our attention to our leader in character from Sahuarita Primary School. Congratulations, Quinn Graham. Congratulations, Quinn. And our leader in character from Sahuarita Intermediate School is a fifth grader. Congratulations, Molly Nguyen. We get Molly her award, and we will move on to our leader in character from Copperview, who I also believe is not here, but again, we want to recognize Alessandra Barraza, second grade. And now we go to another K-8 school where we have two honorees. This time it's Wrightson Ridge. And our first leader in character is second grader Leon Lugo. Leon. Congratulations, Leon. And our next leader in character from Wrightson Ridge is sixth grader Maya Malkin. Maya. Congratulations. And it is now time to recognize the leader in character from Sahuarita Middle School. Congratulations, eighth grader Porter Egbert. And we're kind of headed to the home stretch of our recognition this evening with our two comprehensive high schools, beginning with Sahuarita High School, where our leader in character this evening is senior Karen Cornaby. And from Walden Grove High School, our honoree this evening is also a senior. Congratulations, Micah Miramontes. And finally, this evening, it's my pleasure to introduce the leader in character from our fully online, fully digital, fully accredited Sahuarita Digital Pathways Academy. This student is also a high school student, a junior. Congratulations, Joseph de Santiago. All right, I don't see Joseph, so we will go ahead and form up. Mr. Bonner will position you there, and we'll go ahead and take our picture. And thanks for bringing them out, especially on a little shorter notice than we usually like. And I know it's a busy time and spring break coming up, and you're welcome to stay, but I know there's things to be done. So after the picture, you're more than welcome to take them home for homework or whatever else has to be done. Parents, if you did want to come down and take a quick picture before we break them up, This Monday coming up. So as you all come down to take your pictures, I was informed of an interesting tidbit. We're talking about character, and board member Rodriguez informed me that this Monday coming up, Micah Miramontes will take the oath of office to be a United States Marine. Talk about character. Congratulations to all of you. Have a wonderful, safe spring break, please. I think they did. Yeah, they did.
We'll give it just a few minutes to clear up. We'll move on to guidelines for call to public. Ms. Palacio, do we have
No.
any calls to public this evening? All right, then we'll move on to textbook adoption. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, President Lowell, members of the board. As you know, there are very specific procedures and protocol for any formal adoption. This is, I guess you'd call it technically an adoption. It's kind of a mini adoption, and it has to do with new materials that are being recommended to Mr. Bonner, and he is recommending to me that the board consider. So I will ask him to make a few comments, and then I will make a recommendation in accordance with our past practice and protocol. Brett?
Thank you, Dr. Valenzuela, Madam President, members of the board, and community. I'm so grateful again to update. We are very healthy and strong in the sense of our AP course offerings. We have over 30 AP courses that are available to our high school students, not always taught at the same time, but it's on our menu. In addition to that, we have a very healthy balance with dual enrollment. So the evolution over time, we have strong AP offerings, we have strong dual enrollment, and my goal today, my objective today, is to support the curriculum materials to support 2 specific AP courses. The first course is AP European History, and the second course is AP Environmental Science. Both of these courses have already been approved by the board previously. They are not new courses. What's new are the textbooks to go with the courses. Not all of our AP courses have textbooks, but what we do follow are the Advanced Placement College Board scope and sequence. These are the curriculum objectives as far as what the content requirements are for the course and the exam guidelines. This document is actually about 250 pages for each course. This aligns accordingly to the textbook material. So the first textbook that we are presenting is a History of Western Society. This is for the AP European History course. This would be a new textbook for implementation next school year. And the second textbook is the AP Environmental Science AP course textbook. It would be replacing the outdated version, which we currently have, but it's a different publisher, and it's the most current edition that I'm presenting today. So part of the presentation purpose is to publicly display the curriculum proposal for 60 calendar days. We go business days. So pending on the recommendation through Dr. Valenzuela, we would start day 1 for public review and comment tomorrow, March 7th, where we'll have these materials at the main district office during regular business hours where anyone in the community can come to view these textbooks. There's a feedback form that they're welcome to fill out. We'll collect that data. Also online, we'll have these resources posted with links of the curriculum in addition to the 250-page plus scope and sequence of the courses that outlines what is being taught, what are the lessons, and how it connects to these textbooks, along with the feedback form electronically. And that will also go active and live tomorrow. Our window will then close on June 11th. That'll be the 60th day. We'll collect the feedback, gather the feedback, and I'll present that feedback pending Dr. Valenzuela's support on Wednesday, June 26, 2024 to the governing board. And during that board meeting, I'll present anything that was shared, highlighted. That's objective A. Pending board approval, if these textbooks are approved to move forward, the classes are already approved by the board, then goes to objective B. these textbooks are not cheap. They're costly. So objective B will then be identifying these books under our district additional assistance allocation for next fiscal year. Based on our budget allocations, if we secure the money, we'll purchase it, but we have to finalize this formal process first. But our goal is to identify these books for purchase pending approval through the board process. If there's any questions, I'm here to help.
Thank you, Mr. Bonner. And before any questions, if there are any, I would recommend, in accordance with our standard practice, tabling this item for 60 days.
Ever.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries. Thank you. On to acceptance of the fiscal year 20 audit report.
Yes, I'll make, yes, ma'am. Thank you, President Lowell, members of the board. I'll make just a few comments, and then I will ask my colleague, Mrs. Huey, to provide a substantive summary of the audit report. I will just state board's information that the acceptance of the audit is a requirement under Arizona revised statutes, and that the other little caveat is that it does require a roll call vote. So we'll have to remember that. Really, my comments will be brief and pretty much to the point. This process is an opportunity to look at ourselves, and I think when you hear what Mrs. Huey has to say, you'll hear that there's a lot of indicators of really strong, sound financial practices. Already at the Unified School District in terms of budgeting, cash and revenues, property controls, procurement, attendance, myriad of others. It's a very meticulous process. Of course, you'll hear there are some refinements. They're not really excessive, and they're things that we're doing in part of our continuous improvement effort. And then finally, as you hear the report, I hope you'll keep in mind something that I keep in my mind as I work through the intricacies, the web, and the very complex nature, which is school finance and the corresponding audit elements. And I really respect and admire this about Lizette, is that you will not find a more professional, a more compliant, more detail-oriented person. We will always be in good standing with these regulations. And it's important because we are public stewards of the public's trust and the public's dollar. But at the same time, I really appreciate how she works to balance and to always keep in mind that these tools, these dollars, are in our trust to deliver our mission. And that within these regulations, we are to use them to move the mission forward. And I think we see examples every day of how that happens. So with that, Lizette, if you could provide us with a summary, and then I'll make the recommendation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Francola. Tonight, before you in your board packet, you have your annual comprehensive financial report. Included is also a single audit report and the USFR compliance questionnaire. So I'll just go through them pretty briefly in summary, but all the documentation board packet. The first item is your annual comprehensive financial report, and that's referred to as ACFR. I know we always use a lot of acronyms. This is referred to as the ACFR. And basically what this report shows, it's 120 pages long. It displays our district's financial transparency and the quality financial information to our community. This is the document that we use. It's very detailed. It talks a lot about all of the details of our business practices and our revenues, our expenditures, every bit of it. But this is important because this is what the creditors use when we're selling our bonds. As you know, that is here. We just had our first call today. And so they ask us very diligent questions about how we manage our finances, what policies and procedures are in place, what trainings that we have. All of those things are very important to our creditors and to people who are going to be purchasing some of these bonds. So that information is included, and you'll see that in summary, I believe that the report shows that our district is in great financial situation and overall health. Additionally, you'll see there's a single audit report. I'm proud to report that on the single audit report, there are no findings for the following areas of financial statements and any federal awards. That's always a plus. The next item is our financial statement audit and USFR compliance questionnaire. And basically, this report consists of, I mean, gosh, there must be 200 plus. I haven't counted them all, but they're always adding more items to our report, and there's currently about 200 plus questions ranging from 18 categories. And basically, what happens is that the auditors request to test all our files. So I want to thank all of our schools, all of our departments, everyone who during the audit, they come twice a year and they ask us for random items with categories. Buy them in a good amount of time. I would say that the majority of it does come from the business office, just because we house a lot of those items and a lot of them are financial. But everything that, there's a lot of things that the district, all the operations, it touches the office at some point of the process, right? Whether it's insurance liability, whether it's ADM, that's how we get our funding, accuracy, that information. So everyone's hands in the pot, like Dr. Valenzuela mentioned, built, everyone has their square. This is another prime example of that because like everyone has their area of expertise and their knowledge. So making sure that everything's tidied up, their perspective areas that it shows in the financial report. So I want to go through the categories just so that you can where we did get some of the findings and the majority of where we did not get findings. So I just want to show a bigger picture. Yes, findings are important to make us better, but at the end of the day, all of our finances really items, and again, there's major findings where it's not going to be costing obligation. So there's the categories. Governing board also has their section in regards to management. None. Budgeting, none. Supply inventory, none. Property control, that's always a big one, and I'm proud to say we had none. A shout out to all of our sites and our warehouse with our surplus. We tabs of that. You see that almost regularly at our board. Our expenditures, none. Our travel, none. Our credit cards and P cards, those are always a hot topic, and none. So that's great. Our procurement, we had none. Classroom site fund, none. So that goes our contracts for none there. Payroll, we had none. Also technology, had none as well. Transportation, always always moving wheels on that bus, right? So transportation's amount of have to track on a day-to-day difficult. Talking about students, talking about miles, how many parts that we fix. Very key. Our records management, well, we had none, and our our general long-term debt, we had none. A few just highlights that we did audit findings, and they're minor, but I just want to highlight them quickly. They're in your packet. According to audit, we had a financial audit for our accounting. We had a coding error by 1 day. 7:30. And I mean that's the kind of thing that we're talking about here. Because certain things that we purchase that are over 5,000, right? Anything 5,000 per item. So that has been identified and that close. Additionally, you'll find reconciliation items. The only I want to highlight here that it's not that we are not doing reconciliation, that we are aware and the board had a big transition from the county school superintendent's office, our county treasurer, which you at LEAP trusted that process. The Auditor General did have to approve that process, and I'm grateful. This information has, amongst other things. But we're tidying some up, and I like they're again small items, monetary value. Cash and revenue, again, those are just some old items that were in the bank and they right in our GL. The back some correcting those items fixed, but in order to fix it, gotta get we're good. Standing for our financial report, there was a small item. The bar didn't have it was 576. That was done because of purchase that was done through grants, and we had to go through hoops and bounds to get it all taken care of, and it resulted in an audit finding. But long story short, we're able to correct it with 915. We have a corrective action plan, and that was submitted and approved. So that was part of the finding. The other items are student attendance and AEM, and I know that I mentioned that there's a lot of moving parts when we're looking at just in everything that we do, but transportation. But I would say kudos to our attendance staff, because there are a lot of moving parts. When students leave, when we take attendance in the morning, when they leave half day, when they're late, all of those things are very critical to funding and our budget. And so having to keep track of those day-to-day basis, almost on a minute-by-minute, very critical. So I commend the staff. So the findings that you see here, again, in the big picture, there are not many, but the SRMS team is looking at, they do a lot of trainings, they really look at this information, they provided the data. So I know and I have faith that they'll continue to work hard to get these items down. Additionally, we had a couple other items noted. One of them was for contracts. Again, we enter like MOUs and IGAs, and basically it was that we paid people the incorrect fiscal year. So that has been cleared and clarified, and I know that Mr. Bonner's working on this year's already, and he already has everything in place. So we got that's completed. And then the last one is a fee schedule. The fee schedule, we just didn't have our summer school on it, and I know that Mr. Bonner made sure that they were on now, but it's something that we've always done in the past, and this wasn't on the but the board is aware, and for us to take fees, those fees have to be approved by the governing board. That has been corrected. So with that, I open up questions that you may have, but that is the
Thank you very much. Any comments, questions?
Madam President, I appreciate all the hard work, and I don't know if outside of having experienced or worked in school finance, people realize the complexity and the overlapping nature of controls, both federal and state. But when I read this report, I always look for when Heinfield Meach and Company sends the report, I always look at the end of the kind of first section in their report document. It says, we did not find any material weaknesses in internal controls. And that's what I really care about, because that doesn't mean there couldn't be something, but these are pretty extensive reviews. And that means we might find something that we need to fix that. But when we're talking about thousands and thousands of entries, I'm expecting certain things to be sometimes miscoded, or CD we left that was from probably prior to when you were in your role. And I think it's important, especially in this time, is kind of, as we live in an area right now where school finance at some level is a hot topic, that we recognize that the current review shows no material weaknesses in internal controls. And internal controls are how we manage that stuff on a daily basis and make sure that it's checked and verified. And I appreciate that effort, because this document shows the public that we really do make an effort to be faithful in the expenditure and use of the funds that they give us. So,
Thank you. Any other comments?
I just want to again shout out, and I do this almost every year, but having done bookkeeping for businesses and whatever, and how difficult it was to manage 250 account codes. Like, I can't, it's almost unfathomable to deal with what it is that our business office deals with. And so I agree with Dr. Sparks in that it just, the sheer number of buckets that we deal with the sheer number of account codes, with student auxiliary accounts, with ADM coming into this, and the number of systems that all come into play with this. It's super important to know that when you can come up with an audit where they're like, oh, well, you miscoded a few things and a few other things, like, this is really, really, really good. And I just am so appreciative that we are in a district, because when we attend those statewide things and we start hearing about some of the horror stories, and you know, even the school district I attended as a student, they had a problem with one of their internal bookkeeping things about a year ago, and where all of the tax credit donations disappeared. Nobody knew where they were, and so it's just, you know, those are the horror stories when you don't have those pieces in place. And I'm extremely grateful that we get to approve this kind of an audit report. So.
I love what I do. I love what I do, so I thank you. As crazy as it might seem, I really do. And just to know, like Dr. Bell, that everything that we do on a day-to-day basis touches our kids, and those are the future of what rules are. The rules, yes, but at the end of the day, figure out ways to work with them. And sometimes it's an extra sheet of paper, sometimes it's an extra check off the list, but at the end of the day, the mission is clear, and I'm grateful, so thank you.
I appreciate how rules to you aren't a hindrance, they're guidance. And I think we all in our community are dealing with higher education institute that is dealing with some financial issues, and what a privilege it is for us. We could not do what we do without having a stable finances and having the department that you lead. And so I'm very grateful, because it makes all of our jobs a whole lot easier. So thank you so very much. And I got to say, I love talking to the auditors, you know, when they call. And I think it's great that they're welcomed and that we love having them. And, you know, their response to that is pretty delightful. I think it shows your character and your leadership and all of that, on how they're respected and welcomed. So thank you very much. The findings are excellent. Appreciate it.
If there is nothing further at this time, as required under statute, I do recommend acceptance of the fiscal year 2023 audit report as presented. And again, just a reminder, it requires a roll call vote.
Thank you very much. I have a recommendation. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Yes,
Motion and a second. I'll go ahead and go the roll call vote. Dr. Sparks.
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Ms. Reese.
yes.
Ms. Lowell. Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. And we will continue. Dr. Valenzuela with public online auction items.
Thank you, President Lowell, members of the board. You heard Ms. Huey talk about a myriad of different categories of consideration, and one of them has to do with the utilization of supplies and inventory controls. And as is often the case, you have actually this time not very long list, but nonetheless a list of items that have exhausted their useful life and that are eligible to be put up for auction to capture residual value, and that is my recommendation this evening.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll continue with new business. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Recently, I received a call from somebody that I think all of us would unanimously agree is a friend of Sahuarita, our friend Mary A. Chernosky, affectionately known as Mac. And Mac asked if she could present, along with Mr. Oscar Gomez, both of whom are former Sahuarita educators. And I don't know about Mr. Gomez, but I know Mac was a social studies teacher. And so, también? Yes, so it's very fitting. And they're here to provide us with information only this evening, but about an important part of Sahuarita's history and Sahuarita's educational history. So we'd like to invite him to come down for a brief informative presentation this evening.
Good evening. My metal parts take a little while to wobble down, but that's okay. Titanium is good. I wanted to thank Dr. Manny, obviously, and Betsy, and Manny Villa for making this possible tonight. Lizette is a jewel, Lizette Huey. She used to work for Wells Fargo Bank, and they were very sad to see her go and spoke about her excellence. So we thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak this evening. This came about because of our book. Look for me a second. And Oscar was a history teacher too. He's mi maestro. He's my teacher because I didn't grow up here. And I learned a lot from him. And so we began this project about 6 years ago through the pandemic, recording people in this community that had phenomenal stories to tell about what it was like to grow up. And of course, Sahuarita has grown by leaps and bounds from this little tiny community that became incorporated in 1994 to what it is today. And so in the process of documenting these stories and accumulating more knowledge for me, because I'm a Midwesterner, I didn't grow up here, Oscar tuned me in and all of us in to our school, which is in the Pecan Groves, our old school that was sold in 1960, okay, to the present owners who are the FICO. Okay, so Oscar, we're going to let you take it away and enlighten us with these wonderful slides. Oh. I told you my. Okay.
Thank you for your time. Poor Scott over there. I don't know how many times he's been cornered and listened to some of my stories of growing up in Sahuarita and things that happened back in the past. And so it's kind of interesting and nice for the opportunity to be back here again and brag about the good old days. Up on the picture you have on the right-hand side, left-hand side is James Kilgore Brown and his family. He had a ranch out here on the western part of the school district. And he also had his headquarters down where La Villita and Sahuarita Road is right now. Back in my day, Sahuarita Road did not run past La Villita. It was all desert up in here. And it was all cattle country here. The interesting thing in that corner is that he had a stagecoach stop going between Nogales and Tucson. And a stagecoach stop, he provided food for horses and people, housing for overnight, and a livery station, I guess, and a hotel for people. So he was then given the permission by the county superintendent back in those days to start a small school at that site. And he started a very small school, as it says up here on the picture, that it was made up of odds and ends of lumber, boxes, and galvanized iron that was established during the ranch. First teacher that taught there was his wife, Olive. Olive was an educated gal from Ohio, and she had been brought back by Mr. Brown as his wife. Went back to Ohio and proposed to her and married her and brought her out here to Arizona. She first lived in Tucson and eventually got her to come down and live in the Sahuarita area. The next shot. The school as it is right now, the old school, what we call the old school, it sits in the middle of, let's say, Farmers Investment Property, right? Down the corner from their headquarters, there by the railroad tracks. It's on the east side. The first building that was built as a permanent building for the school district was in 1915. Can you imagine $3,000 for just that building right there. One building. That is the north side of the current school. The windows face to the north. And one of the things that I found kind of odd in looking at the numbers there and list things that are listed there is that there are no bathrooms, no washing facilities provided, the drawings. It just says it's a storage room and the other one that is a classroom. So it's a one big room, red brick, high roof. And you can see the picture on the right-hand side. Next picture. Probably did. All right. Now, in 1926, a bond was held. Bond election was held to build 2 more rooms to the school. This particular building was built to the south side of the one that you saw previously. 2 rooms were added. And it's kind of neat I was in 4th grade and 5th grade, it was kind of neat to see that there were folding doors between the 2 classes. And I thought that was a unique invention back in those days. But when we started teaching school here in Sahuarita back in 1972, it was kind of odd that I see some of the classrooms had folding doors between them. It's kind of, I said, oh, this is nothing novel. That was going on in school back in the 1920s. Where did the kids come from? Kids came from the school from this particular area. La Villita area was already established back in those days. And it was kind of interesting for me growing up and living on the farm. I was raised there on the farm property that is now Farmers Investment Company. And when we originally moved to Arizona from Texas, we lived north of what is now Pima Mine Road along the Nogales Highway. And that is vacant land, is owned by vacant land in the sense that there's nothing grown there. And if you go by Pima Mine Road, you go north on Nogales Highway and you see some, that's where the headquarters, the living areas were for Leemore Ranch. Mr. Leemore was a railroad executive in Texas, and he had 3,500 acres along the Rio Grande south of El Paso, between 2 towns called Clint and Fabens. They're on I-10. And in 1925, he bought that property before there was even Pima Mine Road there. And so anyway, that's where we moved to. And eventually, he sold that property, so we moved to Sahuarita proper. But as growing up, I found out from some of my friends, particularly some that in 1942 were only 15 years old. So he tells me that, they used to tell me that they rode horses from La Villita area and crossed the river to get down to the old school. One of the things that you have to find out that is kind of interesting is at one time, the school board authorized that those kids be paid money, or not kids, but that money should be funded to feed the horses that the kids rode to school. Because, we didn't have buses, so the only way they got there was to ride their horses. And it was not unusual in other stories we heard from people who lived down on the road, what is now Continental Road. They used to live out in that area. Where the intersection goes to Dubai Mine Road. That's off that used to be the Nogales Highway. And when the Nogales Highway was fixed up, cut that was made in 1952, 53. But Nogales Highway went down all the way to Continental. Then from Continental, it headed west and then hooked up and went all the way down to what is now Halfway Station and Kinsley, the Cow Palace area, and on down to Nogales. But the road don't go down to Continental. Some kids lived there. It was not unusual for a friend of mine back in those days telling the stories that he used his wagon and horse to go to school every day. And he picked up kids along the way to take them to school. So at this particular time now in 1939, we had 3 buildings, 3 classrooms. Next picture, please. Okay. This is what, oh, let's go back some more. Let's go back one. Okay, you can see the the architect's design there. The whole building was built by a well-known architect, Josted. He designed other schools. It's kind of interesting that this record of this particular building is found in the special collections at the University of Arizona. It's kind of neat that these kinds of things were kept. That part of the building that you see in the front faces south. So the picture, the way you see it, is kind of turned around. Kind of have to take it and turn it around so the bottom part faces north and the top part faces south. It's kind of neat to see all the windows. If you were to visit the site right now, you are going to be impressed when you drive in and you can see the windows there, but they've been boarded out with plywood. No, you can't. You got to raise your voice.
Okay. That's how history teachers are. Anyway, I wanted to point out that, first of all, this is Henry Trost. And Trost, if you go to the El Paso Library, he's a world-renowned, well, I shouldn't say, he's at least in the United States. I don't know if that he's world-renowned. I will take that back, but I believe he is. Renowned architect. So when we were looking at this building, which I knew nothing about, and Oscar's telling you the stories about his experiences there, Mary Kajalitis, one of the people that worked on the book, and I respect her tremendously because she's a research librarian, and she's very calm and sedate. And she called me up and she said, "This is a big damn deal." And I said, "What do you mean this is a big damn deal?" She said, "No, this is a big damn deal." And I went, "Okay, why is this a big damn deal?" And she said, "Because this architect is so famous and he designed the first section of our building." And then not only that, and I said, "Okay, tell me more." She said, Jastad, I'm sorry for the mispronunciation, Henry O, is also a damn big deal. And I went, "Okay." And he added the second part to this school and the addition. Okay. And so that's why our ears perked up and I said, "Holy sugar, it's falling into disrepair." Okay. And if you look at this next one, that's what it looks like now. And Oscar will talk a little bit about it. Okay. It is really dilapidated. It is 109 years this year. It'll be 110 years next year. Okay. And so I'll let Oscar talk a little bit more, but it was basically sold to FICO for $10. Okay. Basically donated, that was the price of the deed. Okay. Go ahead, Oscar.
When I attended the school, the windows on the right held the 4th grade. The ones in the middle is the 5th grade. And one on the left is the last addition that was made to this particular building, which held the 3rd grade. Some of the teachers that we had during that time when I was in school, Mrs. Dudgeon taught in the 4th grade. Mrs. Templeton taught 5th grade when I was there in 5th grade. And Mrs. Irvin taught 3rd grade. Mrs. Templeton, I do know that the years previously she had taught quite a few years in Continental. And of course they all lived in Tucson, so I guess it was easier to stop here at Sahuarita rather than go all the way to Continental. The last edition that was made with the number of students that we had as the area started growing was in 1930, shortly after this, Army barracks had been brought in and put off to the right and to the back of the building, and it created 3 more classrooms. We're going to go to the next picture. You can see some of the activities. I want to talk about the picture on the left. That's an aerial picture that was taken back in the 1950s by a student with a very old, I would say, maybe old, I wouldn't say cheap camera back in those days, but not a very good camera by today's standards. And it shows you what the site looked like back in the 50s. If you see that little, very top of it, it says a little white roof. That is the Army barracks that was put in. Right next to the left of it is the red building. Down in the bottom, towards the bottom, there was another little classroom. It was first grade. I was kind of looking at my list a couple days ago. And when I started first grade in 1951, in that little room, which is half this size, and here, had 49 first graders. After Christmas, it was really nice when I started realizing in later years that I would love Christmas to come soon, because by then we only had 20 students left for the rest of the school year. What happened to all those students back in those days? Well, we had a lot of migrant workers coming in to pick cotton. And once the cotton season ended, they took off to other places in the United States to work. When you look at the outline of it, I think that from the bottom part to the top part, the school had about 300 yards, at least 3 footballs long, south, approximately 2 football fields going west to the left and down. So it's quite a rectangle. And we had enough room in the back to put a football field back in the States. And it's kind of interesting. We had a teacher that came to our school back in 1953. His name was Porter Wilson. And he was assigned to teach 6th grade, but he was also supposed to be our physical education teacher. So he taught PE to 6th and 7th graders, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And no gym. So you can imagine we were out playing football, basketball, baseball in our street clothes with whatever shoes we had in those days, tennis shoes, hard shoes, those that we had for shoes. And he noticed that if we played football the way we were playing football, rough and tumble type of football, we would end up hitting everybody's clothes or ripping everybody's clothes and so forth. So he came up with the idea of using belts and flags. And this gentleman was I would say to a large degree, an inventor of flag football. And for many years, he also supported flag football throughout his career. And he had his own flag manufacturing company, Flag Attack. And to this day, because of his support for women's flag football, he is in the flag football Hall of Fame, and also is recognized every year since his death. They've given out the Porter Wilson Award to anyone who promotes flag football throughout the world, Africa, Europe, here in the United States.
So if you look at this last slide, you can imagine, because it invites you to imagine. I want to correct one statement I made. The school was owned by Manila's Bar and Grill and the school district at one point, okay? Because we found the deed. Okay? But it was donated, okay, to the school district, the school district donated it to FICO for about $10. It's interesting when you read things because it's like, wow, I didn't know that. But yeah, it was jointly owned at one point. So it talks about here, can you imagine, looking at this building and the merry-go-round, which Oscar has, one of his relatives has, the original merry-go-round, and the 4-H clubs that took place here, and the women that were quilting there, and all of the activities that took place. I like to imagine a historian, and I'm sure Oscar would attest to this fact, if you could go back in history and just touch the building and feel the vibes and feel what went on in that building. That's what makes us historians, because we're captivated by those tales. And so we're here to advocate, because this is a piece of your history. You're the school board, you're the superintendent, okay? We need people to go and speak about the importance of this building to see if we can procure it, because it's privately owned. Hey, we can't do it. You need to do it. And so if you truly care about the history of this area, and I think you do, okay, because we wrote that book, as you know, we took no money for it. And I want to mention this very quickly because this is important to me. We're called the Friends of Sahuarita because Monica Christiansen, Amy Millett, Lori Punske, Oscar Gomez, Mary Koshalitis, and I took about 6 years and no money We didn't ask for anything except SEEF was very gracious to help us. The school district was behind us. Thank you so much. We will never lo prezzo mucho, you know that. Muchísimo, okay? It really touched my heart, and all of the monies come back to SEEF, okay? Every time we sell a book, and we've sold over 750 in just a year, okay? Those monies come back to SEEF that I was president and vice president of to help our kids. So I'm asking you on behalf of our children and the history that we would like to preserve to advocate for us. And that's why we came here tonight. And if you have in any of our school buildings, like it was just over at SHS, there's treasure trove of items over there. Okay. We want to preserve them. Okay. We want to keep and preserve them at some point. But right now, our focus is on the school. Okay. Are you allowed to take any questions or no?
Yeah, we have
Go
it's
ahead.
on the agenda. So
If you
if
have
anybody
any
have
questions.
any questions for Mac?
That's what the building, this particular.
Thank you.
Mac,
Yep.
I'm curious, what is your vision of what the desired outcome?
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. That's a very reasonable request or question. I've been thinking about this for a long time, since Oscar first informed me about this. The town center is building near the J.K. Brown Ranch, or the town is building a new town center. Okay, have any of you been to Tubac and seen their school? Okay, and you know it's economic development, right? Victor Gonzalez is probably going, yay, economic development for the town of Sahuarita. So their shop's going to go in there. Wouldn't it be nice to feature our school and have that school building there? Okay, we have people in place now. We have an architectural historian. We have our research librarian who are willing to help for free. Okay, it could be put on the state registry. It would have to be moved, so we don't think it could be put on the National Historical Registry as a result, but that's okay. The State Historical Registry works just fine for us, and it would be nice to have it there. We could credit, if we can procure it, of course, thanking the FICO for, doing this for us, and the architectural designs of that building that Monica and I went up there. First of all, the Troust Foundation, which is huge in El Paso, they were ecstatic. They had 3 unmarked architectural drawings by this very famous man, and one of them was our school building. They didn't know it, and they were like, oh my gosh, you've just told us that that's one of ours. And Janst, and I know I'm probably killing that name, we got those from the University of Arizona, and it was just, I don't know, it gave me goosebumps. That's all I can tell you. I pictured them framed, these beautiful architectural drawings framed and on the walls. I also have made acquaintances with J.J. Lamb from Vail, who said it's about time you guys got serious about your history here. And she's a museum curator, okay? So I know I could get help from her because she's really willing to help.
Mac, if this was approved by the owners
Yes,
of the property,
yes.
who do you envision would lead the charge to advance this initiative and finance the initiative and kind of create that final desired outcome?
Very good question. I know that, and I can't speak on his behalf, but I have spoken to Dr. John Arnold from PPEP. I know the Troust Foundation is eager to preserve his memory and eager to accept grants and finance projects with his name on it. And I would imagine that would be true for Janst, and I know I'm killing the pronunciation against, but I'm resourceful. I don't know if you remember Dr. Manny. Okay, you've sent me 2 people. One person that wanted to get an environmental thing going, an environmental bus, as you remember, and you smiled when I had $25,000 from her for an endowment. Okay, I'm a go-getter. You know that, even at 73 years young. All right, and
Yes, ma'am.
the book that Barbara Bennett came to the office and said, "Gee, here I have all of these treasure troves of things that I've saved and documented," because they had tried before. Okay, the mayor, I cannot remember his name right now, but Barbara Bennett and the mayor had formed a a group that wanted to document the oral history of this area. And unfortunately, Gorski, is it Gorski? I'm close. I'm sorry, I'm close. I'm having a senior moment. Anyways, regardless, it happens. So he was the mayor of Sahuarita, and they had started this, and then it fell apart. So thank goodness we were able to get this going. And I always say, through the grace of God, I do not want to not mention that, because Providence was with us, and we were able to pull this book off. And I'm so grateful. And that's all I can tell you. So where there's a will, there's a way. And I don't know. I just feel that
No, thank
we'll be
you.
inspired to move ahead.
No, thank you for your time. Thank you for the information.
Okay.
Once a teacher, always a teacher. We will
Awesome.
take this
Wait.
information under advisement and consideration, and we are more knowledgeable than we were before you made the presentation. So thank you for being here with us this evening.
You know, the school meant a lot, the location means a lot to me. And it was a place where I really got involved with education as a little kid. Teachers from there were great. Took us to the Desert Museum back in the 50s, when the museum was only 2 years old. Took us to Old Tucson. They would take us to picnics up in Madera Canyon. Mrs. Stock, her husband was a doctor at the Indian Agency here in Tucson. And she would take us over to her house for Easter egg hunts. And Porter Wilson would take us from that site to go to take swimming lessons in Tucson. He would take us to University of Arizona football games. He would drive around the community, the bus, and go up to McGee Ranch, going down to Nogales Highway, kids at night on Saturday, on U of A football game night weeks. And he would take us to the game and then take us all home afterwards. So the kinds of things that happened there for a school that size, and the experience that I had, at least for the 9 years that I was there, the school as an elementary school, and I hate to see that place just go.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. Thank you for caring.
Yeah.
And we're grateful for your time and your information. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, President Lowell. Members of the board, you have in your packet items that are listed and considered routine in nature, and routine consent matters can be considered in one comprehensive motion. And this evening, I do recommend approval of the consent agenda in its entirety.
Thank you very much. I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Possible future agenda considerations. We'll move on to establish the next board meeting, which is April 10th, 2024, here in this building. And we are going to move into executive session. We just did this last week. I think I would remember how to do this. All right, Denise, right?
Yes. Discussion and consideration. Let me make sure I'm on the right one. They all look the same tonight. All right. Yeah, right. Okay. Discussion or consideration of employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, demotion, dismissal, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of a public officer, appointee, or employee of any public body, except that, with the exception of salary discussions, an officer, appointee, or employee may demand that the discussion or consideration occur as a public meeting. The public body shall provide the officer, appointee, or employee with written notice of executive session as is appropriate, but not less than 24 hours for the officer, appointee, or employee to determine whether the discussion or consideration should occur at a public meeting. I still don't think that's the right one.
Yep, that's right.
I think is
Yes,
right.
that's
Oh,
the right
okay.
one. Thank you very much. So now we need a
Roll call.
Motion to move
motion
into-
to move into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
motion and a second.
Yes.
We'll do a roll call on the vote. Dr. Sparks?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Reese?
Yes.
Oh, yes. And so we are now in executive.
We will move into executive session. There will be no further public action by the board other than to come out and adjourn. Thank you all for
So
being.
we'll do a quick 5-minute break and come back.